Good evening, everyone. Let me start with a simple truth. Your thoughts are powerful, more powerful than you may even realize. They shape your actions, your habits, and ultimately your life. If you're here, it's because you want to change something, maybe break free from laziness, from procrastination, from that feeling of being stuck. Laziness is often misunderstood. We tend to think of it as a fixed part of our personality, something intrinsic that defines who we are. But in reality, laziness is just a habit, a learned behavior that is developed over time through repetition of certain thoughts and actions. It's not an unchangeable aspect of our identity, but rather a conditioned response to certain situations, challenges, or even emotions. The good news is that habits can be broken and new ones can be formed, which means laziness, too, can be overcome. When we repeatedly choose to avoid difficult tasks or procrastinate, we are reinforcing patterns in our brain. These patterns become neural circuits that dictate how we respond to discomfort, effort, or challenge. Over time, this automatic response becomes what we label as laziness. But what we fail to realize is that we've been training our brain to take the path of least resistance, to avoid situations that might require more effort or focus. Every time we choose to delay action or choose comfort over productivity, we are strengthening the neural pathways that make it easier to fall into laziness. This process doesn't mean we are inherently lazy. It simply means that our brain has been conditioned to respond in a certain way based on past choices and behaviors. This distinction is critical because it opens up the possibility for change. If laziness is just a habit, then by that logic it can be unlearned. We can train ourselves to act differently, to rewire our brains so that we respond to challenges with energy and commitment rather than avoidance and delay. The key is recognizing that laziness is not a reflection of who you are at your core. It's a byproduct of conditioning a pattern that you've unintentionally strengthened over time. And like any pattern, it can be disrupted. The first step to doing this is awareness. You need to become aware of the moments when laziness takes over, when you make that choice to put off an important task or take the easier route. Awareness gives you the power to interrupt the cycle. It's the first step toward change because you cannot break a habit that you're not even aware of. Once you start noticing these moments of laziness, the next step is to replace those automatic responses with conscious choices. This is where the concept of neuroplasticity comes in. Your brain is constantly changing and adapting based on what you do and think. When you consciously choose to act, even when your mind is pulling you toward laziness, you are beginning the process of rewiring your brain. Over time, as you consistently make these new choices, you'll form new neural circuits that favor action and productivity instead of avoidance. It's important to remember that this process doesn't happen overnight. Habits are formed through repetition, and breaking the habit of laziness will require consistent effort. However, the more you practice acting differently, the easier it will become. Just as you've trained yourself into laziness, you can train yourself out of it. With time, the old circuits of avoidance and procrastination will weaken, and the new circuits of action and focus will take over. By understanding that laziness is not an inherent trait, but a conditioned habit, you give yourself the power to change it. You are not lazy, you've simply been acting lazily. And with awareness, conscious effort, and the natural adaptability of your brain, you can break free from that cycle and create a new pattern of productivity and engagement in your life. Becoming aware of your thoughts is one of the most powerful tools you have in overcoming laziness. Laziness, in many ways, is a mental habit built from repeated thoughts and actions. Every time you think, I'll do it later, or it's not that important right now. You're strengthening a pattern in your mind that favors inaction. But what if you could catch those thoughts before they influence your behavior? That's where awareness comes in. Awareness is the first essential step toward breaking any negative habit, including laziness. Often we live much of our lives on autopilot, going through the motions without consciously thinking about the choices we make. We get up, go to work, come home, and repeat. Somewhere along the way, we develop habits, some good, some bad, that influence our behavior without us even realizing it. Laziness is one of those habits that can easily slip into our lives unnoticed, camouflaged by excuses and rationalizations. It's easy to convince yourself that you'll start working on that important task later, or that resting a little longer won't hurt. But in truth, these small, seemingly insignificant decisions add up over time, creating a mindset that supports procrastination and avoidance. The reason awareness is so important is that you cannot change what you are not conscious of. If you are unaware of the moments when laziness creeps in, when you make those tiny decisions to put off work or stay in your comfort zone, you will never be able to break free from that pattern. It's like trying to navigate a maze while blindfolded without seeing where you're going wrong. You can't make the adjustments needed to move forward. So how do you develop this awareness? It starts with paying close attention to your thoughts throughout the day. When you're faced with a task, notice the mental dialogue that happens. Are you telling yourself it's too difficult, that you'll do it later? Or that you deserve to relax instead? These are the kinds of thoughts that reinforce laziness. Once you start noticing these thoughts, you begin to see the patterns that have been holding you back. But awareness isn't just about noticing the negative thoughts. It's also about recognizing the moments when you feel motivated or inspired and reinforcing those. When you act on those moments, you strengthen the neural circuits in your brain that favor action and productivity. You start to build new mental habits that support getting things done even when it's uncomfortable or difficult. Another critical part of awareness is understanding the triggers that lead to laziness. For some people, it's boredom. For others, it might be fear of failure or the feeling that a task is too overwhelming. By identifying what triggers your laziness, you can start to address the underlying issues. Maybe you need to break large tasks into smaller, more manageable steps, or perhaps you need to develop a routine that minimizes distractions. The more aware you are of these triggers, the better equipped you'll be to counteract them before they lead to procrastination. Awareness also allows you to be more compassionate with yourself. Often when people realize they've been lazy, they respond with harsh self-criticism. While it's important to hold yourself accountable, beating yourself up will only make you feel worse and can actually reinforce the cycle of avoidance. Instead, use your awareness to approach the situation with curiosity rather than judgment. Ask yourself why you're avoiding the task and what you can do to make it easier to start. Once you've developed this awareness, you'll find that you have much more control over your actions. You'll start catching yourself in the moment, recognizing when your mind is pulling you toward laziness and making a conscious choice to do something different. Over time, this awareness will become a habit in itself, a mental muscle that grows stronger the more you use it. By becoming aware of your thoughts, you take the first step in breaking free from the habit of laziness. It empowers you to make different choices, to steer your actions in a new direction, and to build a mindset that supports productivity and success. Reprogramming your mind through visualization is one of the most effective techniques for overcoming laziness. It taps into the science of how your brain works, allowing you to reshape your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. The beauty of visualization lies in its simplicity and effectiveness. Your brain does not differentiate between what is real and what is vividly imagined. This means that by repeatedly visualizing yourself taking action, being productive, and overcoming obstacles, you are laying the foundation for real change. Most of us operate from a set of deeply ingrained habits and mental patterns, many of which we're not even aware of. Laziness is one such pattern. When you repeatedly choose comfort over effort, your brain starts wiring itself to make that choice easier and more automatic. Over time, you might find yourself avoiding tasks or procrastinating without even realizing it. The good news is that these mental patterns aren't fixed. Your brain is incredibly adaptable and capable of forming new neural pathways, a concept known as neuroplasticity. And visualization is one of the most powerful ways to leverage this adaptability. When you visualize yourself taking action, you're essentially rehearsing that behavior in your mind. Studies have shown that the same neural circuits that are activated when you perform an action are also activated when you imagine doing it. For instance, if you imagine yourself getting up early and starting your day with purpose, the same areas of your brain light up as if you were actually doing it. This mental rehearsal primes your brain and body for the real thing, making it easier to act when the time comes. The key to effective visualization is detail and consistency. It's not enough to vaguely imagine yourself being more productive or less lazy. You need to create vivid, detailed mental images of the specific actions you want to take. For example, if you want to become more disciplined with your work, visualize yourself sitting at your desk, fully focused, completing your tasks with energy and efficiency. Imagine the feeling of accomplishment, the satisfaction of crossing off items on your to-do list, and the pride of knowing you've made progress. The more detailed and emotionally charged your visualization is, the more powerful its effects will be. By doing this regularly, you are essentially reprogramming your brain. You are building new neural pathways that associate action and effort with positive outcomes. Over time, these pathways will become stronger, and the old pathways, those that support laziness and procrastination, will weaken. This is how neuroplasticity works. The more you use a particular neural circuit, the stronger it becomes, and the less you use a circuit, the more it fades away. Another crucial aspect of visualization is that it helps you shift your identity. Often laziness is reinforced by the way we see ourselves. If you've spent years identifying as someone who struggles with procrastination or avoids hard work, that identity becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Visualization allows you to see yourself differently. When you consistently imagine yourself as someone who takes action, someone who is motivated and driven, your brain begins to accept that new identity as reality. And when your identity shifts, your behavior naturally follows. Visualization also has the power to change your emotional state, which is critical in overcoming laziness. Laziness often stems from negative emotions like fear, anxiety, or overwhelm. When you visualize yourself successfully completing a task, you generate positive emotions, excitement, pride, satisfaction that can override those negative feelings. These positive emotions make it easier to take action, creating a feedback loop that reinforces productivity and diminishes laziness. It's important to practice visualization consistently. Like any new habit, it takes time to see results. But with regular practice, you'll notice that taking action becomes easier and more natural. You'll start to feel less resistance when faced with tasks that used to trigger your laziness, and over time, your default response will shift from avoidance to action. By visualizing your way to success, you are reprogramming your mind to think and act differently. You are building new neural pathways that favor productivity, action, and accomplishment. With time and persistence, these mental shifts will manifest in your everyday behavior, helping you break free from the cycle of laziness and move toward the life you desire. Taking small, consistent actions is crucial when breaking the cycle of laziness and creating lasting change in your life. The idea of tackling big projects or transforming your entire routine all at once can feel overwhelming, which is often why people get stuck in a pattern of procrastination. Laziness thrives in the presence of overwhelm. However, when you focus on taking small, manageable steps, you not only lower the psychological barrier to action, but also build momentum that can eventually lead to significant progress. The brain is wired to seek comfort and avoid discomfort, which is why we often gravitate toward habits that are easy and familiar. Large, daunting tasks can trigger feelings of anxiety or fear, which makes us procrastinate or avoid them altogether. But small actions circumvent this response. They don't trigger the same level of resistance, which means it's easier to get started. And getting started is often the hardest part. The power of small actions lies in their ability to compound over time. Consider it like building a muscle. You don't go to the gym and expect to lift the heaviest weights on your first day. Instead, you start small, lifting lighter weights and gradually increasing the load as your strength improves. The same principle applies to overcoming laziness. Start by setting achievable goals that don't feel overwhelming. This could be as simple as working on a task for just 10 minutes or taking the first step toward a bigger goal, like sending an email or writing down an outline for a project. What happens when you take these small actions consistently is that you start to build momentum. Momentum is key because it's often inertia that keeps us stuck in laziness. When you're in a state of inaction, everything feels harder. But once you start moving, even if it's just in small increments, it becomes easier to keep going. Each small action leads to the next, and before you know it, you've made significant progress. The brain loves momentum. When you complete one task, no matter how small, it releases dopamine, the feel-good chemical, which reinforces the behavior and makes you more likely to continue. By breaking down large tasks into smaller, more manageable steps, you're also training your brain to associate effort with success, rather than stress or failure. This reprogramming is crucial because laziness is often rooted in negative associations with effort, fear of failure, discomfort, or frustration. Small wins help you build a positive feedback loop, where effort leads to accomplishment, which leads to more effort. Another important aspect of taking small actions is consistency. It's not about making one big push and then falling back into old habits. Real change happens when you commit to taking small actions regularly. Consistency rewires your brain over time, helping to build new habits and replace the old patterns of laziness. Think of it as laying down new neural pathways. The more often you take action, the stronger those pathways become, and the weaker the pathways of avoidance and procrastination grow. Small actions also give you the opportunity to learn and adapt. When you take on too much at once, you're more likely to feel overwhelmed, burn out, or make mistakes that discourage you from continuing. But when you move forward in small steps, you have room to adjust your approach as needed. If something doesn't work, it's easier to pivot and try a new strategy. This flexibility keeps you engaged and motivated, reducing the likelihood of falling back into laziness. Over time, these small, consistent actions can lead to major transformations. It's not about making massive changes overnight. It's about building sustainable habits that support long-term success. By focusing on one step at a time, you eliminate the mental barriers that lead to procrastination and laziness. Each small action reinforces the mindset of productivity, creating a ripple effect that can significantly improve your ability to take on larger tasks and achieve your goals. Finally, taking small actions helps you shift your identity. Laziness isn't just a behavior, it's often tied to how we see ourselves. If you've identified as a lazy person for a long time, it can feel almost impossible to break that label. But each small action you take moves you away from that identity and toward a new one, someone who takes initiative, someone who gets things done. Over time, this shift in self-perception becomes more powerful than the habit of laziness itself. In summary, small, consistent actions are the building blocks of lasting change. They bypass the overwhelm that leads to procrastination, create momentum, and reinforce positive habits. Through this approach, you can gradually overcome laziness and replace it with a pattern of action, productivity, and success. Meditation is a powerful tool for bridging the gap between thought and action, especially when it comes to overcoming laziness. Often, the root cause of laziness lies in a disconnection between what we know we should do and what we actually do. We may have the intention to be productive, but our actions don't always align with those intentions. Meditation helps us close that gap by increasing self-awareness, regulating emotions, and rewiring our brains for focus and action. It serves as a mental reset that allows us to approach tasks with clarity and determination rather than avoidance or procrastination. When you meditate, you're training your mind to focus. In a world filled with distractions, whether it's social media, emails, or the endless stream of information around us, it's easy to lose track of what's important and fall into patterns of inaction. Meditation teaches us to notice when our attention wanders and gently bring it back to the present moment. This practice of mindfulness can be directly applied to overcoming laziness. Often, laziness manifests as avoidance because we're overwhelmed by the future or stuck ruminating on the past. Meditation pulls us into the present, grounding us in what needs to be done right now rather than what could or should happen later. One of the key benefits of meditation is that it allows you to observe your thoughts without judgment. Many times, laziness is driven by negative self-talk or feelings of overwhelm. You might think, this task is too hard or I'm not motivated today. These thoughts can snowball, making the task at hand seem even more insurmountable and reinforcing a cycle of procrastination. Through meditation, you learn to observe these thoughts as they arise without becoming attached to them. You see them for what they are, just thoughts, not truths, and you gain the ability to let them pass without letting them control your behavior. Meditation also helps regulate emotions, which is essential in combating laziness. Laziness is often an emotional response to stress, fear, or frustration. When faced with a challenging task, you might feel anxious or overwhelmed, leading to avoidance as a way to cope. Meditation helps to calm the mind and body, reducing the emotional intensity that triggers procrastination. By practicing meditation regularly, you train your brain to handle stress more effectively, making it easier to approach difficult tasks with a sense of calm and focus rather than avoidance. One of the most profound ways meditation helps bridge thought and action is through visualization during meditation. When you meditate, you can incorporate visualization techniques to imagine yourself successfully completing tasks, staying focused, and being productive. This mental rehearsal creates a powerful neural blueprint in your brain. Visualization is not just daydreaming, it engages the same neural circuits that are active when you're actually performing the task. Over time, this practice makes it easier for you to translate those thoughts into real-world actions because your brain is already familiar with the process. Meditation also helps build discipline, which is a critical component in overcoming laziness. The very act of sitting down to meditate, even when you don't feel like it, reinforces the habit of doing things that are uncomfortable or require effort. Each time you meditate, you're practicing self-discipline. This spills over into other areas of your life, making it easier to take action in moments when laziness might otherwise take hold. Just as you learn to return your focus to your breath during meditation, you can learn to return your focus to the task at hand in your daily life. Another benefit of meditation is the increased clarity it brings. Often laziness stems from a lack of clarity or direction. When tasks feel ambiguous or overwhelming, it's easy to fall into procrastination. Meditation clears mental clutter and enhances your ability to prioritize. It helps you see what truly matters and what steps you need to take to move forward. By cultivating this sense of mental clarity, you can approach tasks with more focus and energy, eliminating the confusion that often leads to inaction. Finally, meditation helps build resilience. Overcoming laziness is not a one-time event, it's a continual process of choosing action over inaction, even when it's hard. Meditation strengthens your mental resilience, helping you push through moments of discomfort or doubt. It teaches you to sit with difficult emotions and thoughts without letting them derail your progress. This resilience is key in breaking the cycle of laziness and replacing it with consistent, purposeful action. In conclusion, meditation is a powerful tool for overcoming laziness because it bridges the gap between intention and action. It enhances self-awareness, regulates emotions, fosters discipline, and brings clarity to your thoughts, making it easier to take action in your daily life. By incorporating meditation into your routine, you can rewire your brain for productivity, focus, and success. Building a new identity is essential in breaking free from laziness and adopting a more productive, action-oriented mindset. The truth is, much of our behavior is shaped by how we see ourselves. If you've spent years identifying as someone who struggles with procrastination or lacks motivation, that identity becomes deeply ingrained, influencing every decision you make. Overcoming laziness, therefore, isn't just about changing your actions in the short term. It's about transforming the way you see yourself and creating a new self-image that aligns with the behaviors you want to adopt. Laziness often stems from limiting beliefs about who we are and what we're capable of. If you've always seen yourself as someone who can't stick to a routine, struggles with discipline, or avoids hard work, those beliefs will dictate your actions. The mind has a powerful way of reinforcing what it believes to be true. So if you believe that you're inherently lazy, your brain will unconsciously seek out ways to validate that belief. You'll procrastinate, avoid difficult tasks, and fall into patterns of inactivity because deep down, that's the identity you've accepted. Changing your identity requires a conscious effort to reframe how you think about yourself. This begins with recognizing that your current identity is not fixed. It's simply a story you've been telling yourself based on past experiences. Just because you've been lazy in the past doesn't mean you are destined to remain that way. Identities are fluid, and you have the power to redefine who you are at any moment. To start building a new identity, you need to ask yourself, who do I want to become? What kind of person takes action, stays focused, and follows through on commitments? Once you have a clear vision of the type of person you want to be, you can begin to align your thoughts and actions with that new identity. It's not enough to simply wish for change, you have to embody it in your daily life. Each time you make a choice that aligns with your new identity, you strengthen it, making it more real and tangible. For example, if you want to be someone who is productive and driven, start by adopting the habits and behaviors of that kind of person. Even if it feels uncomfortable or unnatural at first, the more you practice these behaviors, the more they become a part of who you are. Every time you resist the urge to procrastinate and instead take action, you are reinforcing your new identity as someone who gets things done. Over time, these small actions compound, and the gap between who you are and who you want to become narrows. Visualization plays a key role in building a new identity. When you regularly visualize yourself as the person you want to be, seeing yourself taking action, staying focused, and achieving your goals, you begin to program your brain to believe in this new version of yourself. The brain doesn't distinguish between what is real and what is imagined with vivid detail. By visualizing yourself as productive and capable, you start to align your subconscious mind with that new identity. This makes it easier to act in ways that support your goals because your brain is already conditioned to believe that's who you are. Affirmations can also help in reinforcing your new identity. Repeatedly telling yourself that you are capable, disciplined, and action-oriented sends powerful messages to your subconscious mind. Over time, these affirmations reshape your self-image, making it easier to believe in your ability to overcome laziness and achieve what you set out to do. It's important, however, that these affirmations are backed by action. Telling yourself that you're productive won't mean much if your behavior continues to reflect laziness. The key is to align your words with consistent, purposeful action. Another important aspect of building a new identity is surrounding yourself with people who embody the traits you want to adopt. Humans are social creatures, and we tend to reflect the behaviors and attitudes of those around us. If you're constantly surrounded by people who are lazy or unmotivated, it will be harder for you to break free from those habits. Conversely, if you spend time with people who are driven, focused, and productive, their behaviors will start to rub off on you. Seek out mentors, friends, or communities that embody the identity you want to create for yourself, and let their energy and habits inspire you. Ultimately, building a new identity is about consistency. It's not about making drastic changes overnight, but rather committing to small daily actions that align with the person you want to become. Each day is an opportunity to reinforce your new identity through your choices, actions, and mindset. Over time, the more you embody this new version of yourself, the easier it becomes to leave laziness behind and step into a life of productivity and fulfillment.